Hi, this is Lorraine, and I'm doing another video. If you'll give me a second to clear center and balance my energy, we'll get started. Okay, so when I was clearing my energy the first time, before I start the video, I clear my energy in the space, and then I do it again when I start the video. And the vision that came in like immediately and super strong was I was running behind this raptor, and there was an incredible sense of urgency, and it was very unsettling for me when I first saw it, because I was like, what's going on? Oh my God, what just happened? Because the emotion that I felt in that moment was very similar to when I did a video a while ago. It would have been in August. It was during Seafair here in Seattle, and we had gone out to see the Blue Angels, and I had talked about it, an episode, a situation, a vision, I'm not sure how to refer to it, that I had had when the show started, and I was tapping into someone else's experience, a soldier. And he had just left a situation where he was running, and I could hear him and I could feel him thinking, they're all dead, they're all dead. And he's just running as fast as he could, flat out, thinking he has to get to his higher ups or whoever he needs to get to tell them what he saw. And this was, at the time I didn't know who it was, but now I do know who that was. But that feeling of urgency and maybe a little anxiety, but mostly urgency that I felt in his body, because I was actually living that experience with him, was the same as when this raptor came in and I saw myself running behind him. There was an incredible amount of urgency to get to someplace. And so as I was channeling, or as I was clearing the space and clearing my energy, what came to me was that it was a reminder that this whole week, and actually the last 3 weeks specifically, I would say 3 weeks, but this last week the energy's been shifting so much that it's been uncomfortable. It almost feels like a roller coaster, like where you drop down the hill and your stomach gets all twisted or nauseous or whatever you want to say, that feeling, and then you start the ride. That's what it's felt like this whole last week, just very intense and a lot of shifting energy. And so that reminder came in to like kind of settle me and be like, don't worry, it's okay. This is just what's happening right now. There is a lot of shifting energy. There's a lot of urgent movement. There's a lot of responses that are necessary to different situations that require an urgent response. So that's just what's going on right now. So that was the message that came through for that vision. Excuse me. And then, so I'm just going to start. That vision I had, though, was kind of appropriate to start this video. Okay, so I'm just going to start November 15th. Perception is the lens by or through which thoughts create reality. What we learn through any experience that we have in this life has an effect on our perception of the world around us, okay? And it's that perception that creates the reality, okay? And if there's a distortion in our perception, there is a distortion in our reality, okay? And so this is, the next part is a lesson of self-care, taking advantage of opportunities. Okay, so a lesson in self-care, taking advantage of opportunities. And so what I've learned in this, as I was thinking about this video, is a lot of this is about how our experiences teach us and give us the tools for this phase in our life, this phase of transcendence, this phase of transition. Okay, so my struggles were about teaching me about myself and the world around me. My struggles forced me to teach myself coping strategies. So teaching myself coping strategies help reveal my inner strength. And so some of my coping strategies to deal with life in my youth, my younger years, because I'm very, I live a very clean life right now. Not a lot of, I don't look outside myself to help me deal with whatever is going on in my life. But when I was younger and I was in a different place as far as maturity and growth, mind, body, and spirit, I would use running. I smoked cigarettes, drug use, drinking, self-preservation through aggression or passivity, depending on the circumstance. Most of these were temporary coping strategies as I found new, healthier ways to maintain a healthy self or state of mind. I never became too steeped in any outlet. It was my inner strength and sense of self, fortified in my childhood, that always brought me awareness in my current circumstance at any given time in my life. The journey of self-awareness constantly moves me closer to center and helps me maintain that center as I move closer to embodying my true self, my divine self. And so when I talk about it was my inner strength and sense of self fortified in my childhood that always brought me awareness in my current circumstance, I'm talking about my relationships with my dad. My relationships with my grandmother were very strong and profound. My relationship with my mother was also very important, but it was different than with my dad and my grandmother, because my dad and my grandmother gave me a very strong sense of faith in religion, and that was my foundation, my spiritual upbringing, my religious upbringing. And then my dad gave me a sense of self and teaching me that I had value as a female by treating me and my mother with the utmost respect and just love. And there's nothing that came before my mom and our family in my dad's life. For my dad, everything was about my mom and us kids. And so I was lucky to have that type of upbringing, that we came first. And it was never about money. We never had a lot of money, but we had enough so that we had food. You know, I could go to the doctor or the dentist. I had clothes, you know, and so on. But that, just knowing that I had someone who loved me unconditionally and that was there for me, gave me a strong sense of self, gave me some type of reliability, even though there were many parts in my life that made me feel vulnerable and weak and insecure. It was always my relationship with my dad and my understanding of my relationship with my grandmother that really fortified my sense of self through my spiritual upbringing, religion, and through my dad's willingness or openness, or just his state of being was loving unconditional. So loving unconditionally. So I knew he always loved me. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say fortified in my childhood. I do not beat myself up over my past choices. I understand the necessity of those experiences to bring me to this place of awareness. I understand the necessity of those experiences and the importance of their role to bring me to this place of awareness. I applaud my efforts of releasing the past, which is much easier said than done, and embracing my true divine self without fear of judgment or ridicule. Why? Because this is our true state. This is our divine birthright. This is how we are all meant to know ourselves. So we are meant to know who we are. We are meant to know our true divine selves. We are meant to reconcile that part of ourselves that is divine. And we can only do that if we are able to release the traumas of this life, forgive ourselves for anything that we've done that we feel was harmful to ourselves and others, and create change in our lives, live from a place of love and light, and come from a place of goodness, right? If we allow our past experiences to continually define who we are, we'll never understand or access or know our true divine selves. And that true divine self is within us. It's all this idea of separation and judgment, self-judgment, that blocks us from seeing, knowing, and understanding this part of ourselves. There has been an attempt to hijack our birthright. The end of this cycle fulfills the covenant of the divine source made to humanity. The faithful return to awareness of their true divine self. As we evolve and transcend, we will embody and access more readily this divine source energy. We will be empowered by this energy. There has always been a clear intention for this world. The process put forth on this world was purposeful, moving us toward a necessary end. This process in its entirety is or was a vetting of energy, intention, a necessary component of our evolution. There is no way anyone, any energy, any intention that does not support the will of the divine will prevail. The feeling is the negative polarity, or that energy promoting separation, believes itself to be divine. Truthfully, all energy is a product of the divine. Separation is an idea put forth by the divine to explore, but it is not part of its homeostatic state. All things of this universe are constructs, ideas. When the divine reaches homeostasis, it is an awareness of existence. It is not an idea, construct, belief, paradigm, etc. Homeostasis for the divine is awareness of existence. All other things are constructs. Thus, the idea or construct of separation does not truly exist. It was created as an idea for the divine to explore. This idea allowed the divine to explore an aspect of itself, but does not define the homeostatic state of the divine. It exists within the divine as a part of the divine, just as a cricket exists as part of Earth's ecology. The cricket resides within the Earth's ecology, but does not define it. All this level at this level of evolution or consciousness, the only word that can be utilized to define this source awareness is love, or words, unconditional love. The divine is an awareness that knows itself as love. Back to this energy promoting separation. This idea of separation is driven by the ego. The ego deceives and deludes. Those embodying separation deceive and delude themselves through the ego. Thus, to transcend to a higher level of consciousness, one must release the ego, a constraint placed upon the physical body, a lock, key, code we must find and resolve in order to open the door, the gateway of transcendence. One cannot circumvent the process put forth by the divine. There are no loopholes or secret passageways. So, I think the best way to explain this really is that is through all of us at some point have an internal struggle. We struggle with the good and the bad within. We struggle with the good and the bad that we've done in this world. Okay? And I'm just saying this because this is the best way I could think of that people can relate to understand what this, how this separation, this darkness is part of the divine. It is divine source energy. So the light and the dark are all part of divinity, because divinity separated itself to create light and darkness, to explore different aspects of itself. Okay? But the best way for me to describe this, to help you understand why this world will transcend into love and light, into balance, and why the universe will eventually reconcile itself in balance, is through this. And we all have internal struggles. And so I'm going to probably talk about, I am going to talk about veterans. And so I'm around a lot of veterans at work. And going to war is trying, mind, body, and spirit. And what's being done once you sign up on this world, no matter how illegal it is, because they would never have the right to do what they did, yet they did it. The negativity, the separation. So we have all these veterans who went to war, and they have done some pretty dark things, and they have done some very good things. I mean, I don't want to talk about specific situations. I can't do that. But I know people who have gone to war and experienced the worst and the best. I'm going to tell one story. This is a good one. My Uncle Dan, when he was in World War II, they were out, and I was watching the Big Red One with him, and they were showing the food drops. And so they dropped the food, and all the soldiers, the 4 or 5, 6 guys that were with this group that the movie was about, go running to this box of food, and or box of supplies. And my uncle was sitting watching the movie with me, and he said, "That didn't happen. We did not get food drops." He's like, "That is poppycock." He didn't say poppycock, but that's what he meant. And so I'm looking, so he starts talking, and I listen. I'm always listening when he speaks, because he was much older than me. He was an elder, and we respect our elders. And he always had something worth hearing to say. And so anyway, he said, he told me a story that he and his men were out. They were in Italy, which might make sense. I was wondering why I wanted to wear this shirt. By Ditta Artigianali, which is a coffee roaster in Italy. Anyway, maybe that's my uncle telling me it's okay to tell this story. So um, they were in Italy, and they went up to a farmhouse, and they traded cigarettes and chocolate for a chicken and a bottle of wine. And so my uncle was a good cook, and he made chicken stew, and they all had chicken stew and wine that night. And so there are good things. So it was good and kind of these. I mean, think about living in war, right? This farmer didn't know who my uncle and the men were. They didn't know if they were good or bad. They knew they were soldiers. They knew they were American, but they didn't know what they were coming up to their front door for, right? Or up to them in the field. My uncle didn't say how he actually approached them. But he was good and kind, and he gave them a chicken and a bottle of wine, and my uncle and the men gave them chocolate and cigarettes in exchange. And so that was a moment of goodness, right? Of sharing resources. And then also there are some negative things that happened, which I'm not really gonna, well, I'm feeling like I should tell the story because but that was their last meal. So when they were in Italy, I don't know the specifics, but my uncle's his whole group of men, I don't know what they call them, their platoon or the group that he was with, they all ended up dying except for my uncle and his commanding officer. And later that day or later, whenever, but I know my uncle said that was their last meal, and so I'll just leave it there. But so there's good and bad experiences, and what you needed to do and what they needed to do to survive was war, right? It was war. And so there's a lot of, so the vets I see today are more, were in the Middle East. They weren't in Europe. They may have been in Europe, but a lot of them spent a lot of time in the Middle East. And there's a lot of internal conflict. There's a lot of internal conflict about what they did in war, what they do in war. And so I'm going to use this as an example, that internal conflict of light and dark within us, what we are capable of, what we do to survive, what we do to protect our country or our people, or our freedoms, right? Can be incredibly aggressive, incredibly violent. And we have to live with those experiences. And when we come home where people are normal, let's just say normal, meaning living everyday lives, who haven't been to war, and we're trying to fit in after we've been through these experiences, we end up dealing with this element of PTSD. But the same thing can be said for kids, people growing up in what we call ghettos, like East Oakland when I was a kid growing up, or the South Side of Chicago, or anywhere, Bedford-Stuyvesant in New York. Very rough areas where there's a lot of violence, a lot of gang violence, a lot of shooting, innocent victims. That can actually, there's a veteran I met who came to our school for a program. I call it our graduate program because it's anyway, he was only there for a couple weeks, and he said that there's been studies that people growing up in these inner cities, their PTSD is just as deep from their experiences growing up in those cities as combat soldiers. Okay, so I think it's important to make that parallel, that you don't have to go to war to have this deeply steeped trauma. Okay, and so what we do to survive, whether it's at war or whether we're living in the inner city or we're living anywhere that would require us to be defensive or aggressive to keep ourselves safe, it will create an internal conflict, okay? So we have this light and dark within us that is shifting back and forth. And through my own experiences, my own traumas, I've always felt guilt, shame, anger, resentment for all the things that I've been through. And it was a huge conflict because I felt like I was a good person, but I didn't always make the best decisions. I've not always made the right decisions, right? I have made mistakes. I am not by any means perfect. I have, I've just been through it myself. So I have my own internal conflict that I carry within. But what I know is that that does not define me. My poor choices or my mistakes, my errors in judgment do not define me. I know I'm a good person. I know I'm a caring person. I know I'm a loving person. And I don't allow those things at this place that I'm at now in my life, having moved through my traumas and released them, and know that those things don't define me. And those things were meant as experiences to teach me about myself, to teach me how strong I am, to teach me how I can fight through anything and make it out intact. That's what those experiences were about. Those experiences weren't about pigeonholing me and defining me as good or bad, as light or dark, as evil or kind, right? Those experiences weren't meant to do that. Those experiences were meant to teach me about who I am, to teach me about my abilities and my strength, my fortitude, my steadfastness, my commitments to the things that I believe in and that I trust in. And that darkness, yes, it is within me, but it doesn't define me. And I have the ability to keep it in check. And so as we look at this divine source energy, yes, this divine source energy embodies light and darkness. It embodies duality, but that darkness that it has within itself does not define this divine source. It's an aspect of it, but it is not defined by that thing. And just the same way I keep all those elements that are maybe less desirable in check, and I know that they don't serve anything other than the ego, and that those things aren't there for the greater good, that they're there to help me understand who I am, who I can be, who I'm meant to be. As long as I understand that, and once I access that information, I'm empowered by that. Those experiences that could have shredded me, could have taken me down, they didn't. They fortified me and showed me how powerful I am. Okay, what powerful energy I carry within me, and what I'm capable of, and what I can overcome. Okay, and so that divine source energy as a whole embodies all those same ideas, all those same concepts, constructs, paradigms within it. And it discovers about itself through our experiences that this negativity, yes, is part of me, but it does not define me. That my homeostatic state is love, is unconditional love. That is who I am. That is what I embody. That defines me, not the negative. Okay, so if I know that about myself, if I know that about the divine energy that resides within me, that's part of me, this divine source knows the same thing, because it lives through us. It experiences this universe through us. We are the many aspects of the divine. We represent the many aspects of the divine. Okay? We represent all perceptions of the divine. And we are a unifying factor, a unifying force. a unifying component. Because as we become more aware of ourselves, more aware of our capacity, more aware of that divinity within us, and we raise our vibration, it's that raising of vibration that unifies us, that draws us back together naturally. Okay? It's not getting together in a group and praying or meditating. We don't align on the outside. We align through the heart center, connecting to the higher self and to the divine. And once we align with the divine, we raise our vibration through that connection, and then we connect to all things through that divine source. So we are naturally drawn back together through our vibration, not through acts of standing in a room together, meditating or praying. That's commendable. That can't hurt, but that's not what this transcendence is about. Okay? I'm going to keep going. Okay, 11:18. Karma. We are all accountable for our words, actions, and thoughts. Reality is created through our consciousness, our words, reality, thoughts. The vetting occurring at this time separates the collective. There will be those living from separation who will be incarnating on a different world, and those transcending and moving to a place of unity consciousness. From separation, we live through individual karmic cycles, which we all are accountable to. There is also a greater karmic cycle or circle for the collective of humanity. The individual separate karmic cycles, so the individual karmic cycles for each individual human on the planet, exists within the greater karmic cycle of the collective of humanity. The collective of humanity moving to a collective unity consciousness will work as a unifying force, creating a unifying field. We will move with the flow of energy and be empowered by that energy. We will influence one another's individual karmic cycle in the best way possible, facilitating healing. There will be some type of reconciliation of our individual karmic cycles that will move us into unity. Even though we still even though we will still have some kind of individual karmic obligation, our energy fields will be unified in such a way that we will not be able to be segregated like we have been in the past. The current paradigm allows for each individual to be influenced through thought, paradigms, belief systems, etc., then controlled and manipulated through those systems. The individual can more readily influence and manipulate, separate individual segregated energy fields. One can have much influence over one or many individual energy fields. So the individual, if you're looking at yourself as separate, as an individual energy field, you are more readily influenced, manipulated, and segregated from everybody else. But when many individual energies are unified in thought and intention, when their karmic cycles or circles are aligned, they become a unifying force, creating a unifying field. They cannot be so readily influenced in a negative way. One individual consciousness living from separation cannot exact a force on a large collective body living from unity consciousness. So you can look at it as, if we're seeing ourselves as separate individual consciousnesses, okay, and there's 8 billion marbles representing the individual consciousnesses on this world. And then you take another marble, let's just say it's the same size, and you run it through the marbles, it'll separate all those marbles very easily, right? Get a bigger marble, get a cue ball, right? And move it through all those individual separated marbles. It will move all the marbles out of the way, or it'll move it in the direction that it wants to go, because they're all living separately, right? They're all existing separately. But if you unify all those individual marbles, those individual consciousnesses into one big marble, right? That one little marble isn't going to be able to move that one big unified consciousness, okay? Even a cue ball isn't going to be able to move those 8 billion unified consciousnesses, okay? Does that make sense? So as separate little itty bitty consciousnesses, considering themselves separate, they're more easily manipulated, moved, redirected, okay? But once we unify, truly unify our consciousness, we will be unmovable. We will be unshakable. We will be fortified in that unity. Okay? So one individual consciousness living from separation cannot exact a force on a large collective body living from unity consciousness. Such a belief is only found at lower vibration through individuals living at lower vibrations. That is the lie of separation. So the belief that separation can control and manipulate, the belief that separation is powerful, the idea of separation is powerful, is a low vibratory belief. Okay. So I guess I'll just add once again, just like those marbles unifying into one huge ball, that's what's happening as our vibrations rise. Okay, as our vibrations rise, as we connect from the heart center to that divine, to the higher self, and to that divine source energy, raising that vibration, connecting to the divine, is naturally drawing us together. So as we connect through the divine, we connect to each other, and we create that unifying force and that unifying field. Okay, that is a natural process that happens as we connect to the divine. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to do it. We will naturally be drawn together, and that is what's happening right now. We are naturally being drawn together by our vibration. And that vibration is being affected by our words, our actions, our thoughts, our intentions on this world in this moment. Okay? So 1119, 2D trees and the whispering. Okay. So I was coming home from work on the bus, and I was looking out the bus window at some trees lining the street. There was a multi-story building, about 8 to 10 stories, and behind them, no matter how I looked at the trees, the angle, whatever, they looked like they were two-dimensional. They looked like a picture. And I was baffled because all the other trees I saw, that when I looked around, all looked like regular trees that were out growing on the sidewalk. But these trees that were just lined up in front of this building, there was like 3 or 4 of them, they all looked flat. They all looked two-dimensional. And I just couldn't, I didn't know what was happening. I was like, why do these trees look flat? And I kept looking, and I look around, and I was so confused. I just was blown away. And so I have a note here that energy is flowing rapidly and powerfully. The 2D trees represented a reversal, taking steps back. These energies supporting separation will be taking steps back in their soul's evolution. They will return to a foundational place. There are many lessons they must relearn. I asked about how this transpires, and visions come in, and many strong feelings that make me feel uncomfortable. So I asked about how this happens. How do they return to a foundational place? What's going to happen? And it was very uncomfortable. So the trees. So what I saw was the two-dimensional tree started spinning. And it looked like it was on like a popsicle stick. So it was like this. They were like big maple trees. I think they were maple trees, and they were stuck on a popsicle stick. And it was almost like someone was kind of, doing that with them. When it starts spinning, it starts to have a 3D effect. The feeling of elevation and regression begin to fill my body. I see the tree spinning and feel elevation and transcendence. The tree's shape begins to change in an indiscernible way. I can't really see it, but I can feel it. Transcendence will not be seen, it will be felt. It will be reflected in your perception of the world around you and yourself. The only thing constant in the universe is change. Transcendence is change on a massive scale. Everything is changing. Nothing will remain the same. The 2D component represents regression. Part of this world will elevate and transcend. Another part will return to a more foundational place. They will step back to a more formless place in their evolution and begin again. Many have lost their way in their lessons. Many have lost sight in the intentions of these lifetimes. The initial lessons and intentions must be rediscovered or revealed, moved through, and successfully integrated into the consciousness. There are many at varying levels of ability, but those not transcending must revisit this cycle and successfully complete it. These varying levels determine the appropriate roles or lifetimes for the individual as they begin the new cycle on a new world. And so basically, depending on where you are now, if you're not going to transcend, where you are in this world will determine your role, your lifetime, wherever you go to, wherever you are transcending, or wherever you are being reborn to. Okay? That world and what your lifetime will be based on where you are coming from here on this planet, on this world. Okay, your experiences will determine your life, your next lifetime. So basically, some people from a very negative place will have a lifetime that reflects that karmically. People who are just not ready, who are trying to transcend and not from quite a negative place, but are still steeped in separation, those experiences, thoughts, intentions will determine what life you'll move into next. Okay? So now the whispering of the universe. So I've always gotten a lot of extraneous information, but now it's flooding in. So whenever I have visions or information come in, there's always some extraneous stuff that's always on the outside, but I just can't bring it all in. I can't process it all and utilize it all because it's just too much, but it's all there. It's all waiting for me to access it. I'm getting a lot of information about the manipulation and deception of humanity, and although I've always received bits of this info over the years, it's just been flooding my mind. I had to ask myself why. Was this a manipulation to move me out of center, or information to aid me on my path and purpose? So a lot of the information is very upsetting. So I'm thinking maybe this could be a manipulation to try to like get me angry or frustrated so it moves me out of center. Okay, or potentially it could be to help me, empower me with information to help me on my path and purpose. And so I had to ask myself that question. The response was, all the information you are receiving is meant to aid you on your path and purpose. All the information has value. And so I have something else I'm going to build on about that, because it truly can go either way. But perception creates our reality. So how do I perceive this experience and how do I utilize it to benefit me? Okay, and so I'll build on that in a little bit, but give me a second. The key to utilizing this information is discernment. That is why X, there's a person, that I'm not going to name. That is why this person is in your life. Well, there are many reasons this person's in your life, but that is one. He is the only one that even comes close to rivaling your ability to discern. Together, you are a force to be reckoned with. And so, discernment of the information coming in is paramount. Maintaining clear, centered, and balanced energy, and learning how to protect your energy so that the messages come in with clarity and with no negative attachments on them is very important in our ability to discern. But there are many people walking through life who just use their intuition to discern. You don't have to do what I do to maintain clear, centered, and balanced energy and protect your energy to discern. But that's the best way to make sure you're protected. But I know many people who are very intuitive that have had so many experiences of light and darkness that they can use that internal guide, their gut, to discern light and darkness, and they're very accurate, very, very accurate. But that's the exception. Okay, that's not the rule. I feel from my experience that is the exception. That's not the rule. I hear the information like whispers, and although I don't hear it constantly, I only need to slow down and listen, and the information comes in. It comes in like streams. This is the next phase in telepathic communication. So it almost is, so the ringing in my ears, it's always there. And if I sit quiet, all I have to do is stop or take a moment or take a breath, and it comes in and I can hear it. But when I'm talking, a lot of times I'm focusing on what I'm saying, I'm focusing on the person, so I don't hear it. Although when I'm doing this, I'm hearing it constantly when I'm doing the videos. But I can always hear that ringing, and it's like the white noise. It's like the whispers, okay? So I don't literally hear whispers. That's not what I'm hearing. But that ringing in my ears, what the epiphany I had was that the ringing in my ears is that extraneous information coming in, waiting for me to access it whenever I want. Okay, it's always there. It's always coming in. And it's always waiting for me to access it. I also mentioned in a past video, when I have negative thoughts, that ringing in my ears, the vibration, the sound goes way up. The pitch goes way, way up. Like a dog whistle. If I could hear a dog whistle, that's how I imagine it sounding. And what that tells me is this divine source energy is balancing out my energy. These negative thoughts are coming in, so it's raising my vibration to counter that negative thought, to keep me elevated and to keep me balanced. It's the deconstructive and constructive interference, same concept, okay? Also, but there are times where I'm just walking through, I'm pleasant, I'm happy, I'm feeling good, and I still hear that vibration go way up, the pitch goes way up. So that just tells me that's my natural progression of evolution of my vibration rising, okay? So that's, I feel important, but so I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when I'm around people now, a lot of times I get all this information and I wouldn't know how to process the information that was coming in the moment. And so I'd be walking away and all of a sudden I'd have all this information, extraneous information come in that superseded or was outside of the conversation. So people come up and talk to me and I'll have that conversation. But the second I walk away, it's like all this information about what's going on in their life, even though sometimes that will come through even during the conversation. As soon as I walk away, that comes in super strong. And now it just comes in through the conversation. So as I'm having conversations with people, I can feel whether they're having issues in their relationship. I can feel whether they're having issues with their kids or their car, or maybe positive and negative. Positive and negative. I don't want to just keep it negative. It doesn't have to be a negative issue. It could be a positive situation, okay? But the information just comes in. And so I would say over the last 6 years or so, that ability has grown incredibly, like drastically. Just being able to read that information as it comes in. So now I'm actually hearing it constantly, the ringing, and the whispers there, but even though they're not whispers, it's the ringing. I know now, not only is that about the rising of my vibration, the raising of my vibration, but also with that is that telepathic ability that's coming in even stronger and stronger. And that's the natural progression of humanity. That's the natural progression of all people who are transcending. Okay? We're all going to have that ability, which makes it really even more important to release your baggage, because I think people, when I do readings, and I normally don't talk about being telepathic, but people become fearful that, oh my God, you're going to know my secrets, you're going to know all the things I've done that I'm not proud of or I'm ashamed of. And once you've moved through the process of releasing your own baggage, your own traumas, you know you can love unconditionally. You know what those traumas and those experiences were for you, what they were meant to do. Okay? And you don't judge yourself. So if you're not judging yourself, why would you judge other people? I don't judge other people or their experiences or what they've been through. Okay? People judge me all the time, but I've released all that energy. I'm not holding on to it, so that judgment doesn't have any effect on me anymore. But once we release our own traumas, our own issues, our own baggage, then we can move forward and love and accept people unconditionally, right? All of us can do that. And so that's one of the beautiful things of transcendence. And as we all release, we all unify, and nobody's going to be worried about you or me knowing their deep, dark secrets, because we'll all understand what that purpose was, what the purpose of those experiences were. Okay, and that goes back to the very beginning when I was talking about separation, this idea of separation and it being disempowering. When I was talking about my coping strategies when I was younger, running, smoking, drug use, drinking, my aggression, all those things happened for me to help understand who I am and why I am this person. Not to define me, it was to help me understand me and my role and my path and purpose. Okay, and so now I'm at a place where those things don't affect me anymore. Okay, those things can't be used against me anymore. I understand them, and I've released them. And so anybody coming into my life who's crossing my path, I don't judge. Okay, I don't pigeonhole. I don't define them by those things. I allow them to be who they are. I allow them to rediscover who they're meant to be on this world. And I support them as much as I possibly can, as much as people will allow me to. But it's not my place to impose myself either. It's not my place to go up to someone and go, I know this, that, and the other thing, and I can help you. Right? That's not my role. But I'm always here to support whenever someone's open to allowing me to do that, to support them. So on the 20th, which is that today, Dragons and unicorns, okay? So dragons and unicorns have been coming in very strong for a long time for me, and they're powerful totems and so on, but they represent something else. They represent higher levels of consciousness, symbolic like angels and elementals. Spiritual warriors are at higher levels of consciousness are archangels. Dragons, and unicorns, okay. I'm just going to tell this because I was watching a movie, Rain of Fire, and there's a scene in the beginning, and Rain of Fire is a movie about dragons that were released in England. God, I can't remember the name of the actors. It totally, escaped my mind. Gerard Butler and Christian Bale. Oh God, I can't believe I couldn't remember that. But there's a scene in the beginning where they are doing a Star Wars scene. They're acting out a Star Wars scene, and they're doing it for the kids. And they do the Luke, I am your father scene, right? For anybody who's watched Star Wars, they know that scene. And so the kids love it. And then they go over the roles. When you go to sleep, keep one eye on the sky. When you do, you always keep one eye on the sky to keep sight of the dragons, right? And but as I'm watching that scene, I just started bursting into tears. And I'm like, why am I in tears? Okay, so it's not the first time I've seen this movie. I've seen it numerous times. And but I'm watching this scene, and I am super emotional, and I'm even getting emotional now thinking about it. But what it was, the message for me in that moment was, this is the divine masculine tapping into its divine feminine. It was, these two men were acting like kids to bring joy to the children, to make them feel safe, but also empower them through knowledge and wisdom. How do we keep our saves in this environment, which is very dangerous in the movie? And they were just mothering these children. So the message to me was that it was an example of when the divine masculine taps into its divine feminine, because we all carry both within us. The divine masculine carries the divine feminine within it, and the divine feminine carries the divine masculine within her too. Okay. So then, so the messages that came in were: unicorns are keeper of codes. And Metatron protects the gateway. So Metatron's an archangel, and that protects the gateway. But the unicorns keep the codes. And the dragons represent the fields of energy. So unicorns are physical symbols. Dragons are physical symbols of these energies that protect or work within the universe. So the unicorns, just think of the unicorns as an energy, not literally a unicorn, but an energy that has the keys and codes to access certain knowledge, wisdom, right? Metatron protects the gateway, and the dragons represent fields of energy. And I knew that because when I had visions of myself flying and astral projecting, and I don't want to go into it, but I was working with the fields of the planet, and I was flying through, and I had these military soldier fighter pilots flying with me in formation around the earth, and I knew what that meant, what that was, and what that meant, and I talked about it in that video, but I don't want to go into it. But always this idea of flight represents working with fields of energy. That's what I know. And so I was seeing these dragons, and in this movie, and dragons have been coming in so strong lately, actually for the last few years, but unicorns and dragons, I would say for the last 6 months or so. And I just made the connection that these dragons represent the fields of energy in this universe, and the unicorns are the keys and the codes to access certain let's say, fields of energy, okay? And Metatron is kind of the gatekeeper that is the ultimate gatekeeper that will allow access or deny access, even if you have found the key or the code, okay, to the fields, okay? And it's just like something I do. I'm always working with fields of energy. That's how I protect my energy, my field, my body, is through fields of energy. How I work with Mother Earth, how I work with the heart of Mother Earth, how I work with the beings. Everything I do is working with energy and fields of energy. So now I have another thing I've tried to, oh wow, the time is 3:33. Love those synchronicities. There's a bunch of stuff missing on my computer for whatever reason. And I'm not going to get upset. I mean, I feel like it's missing because someone wants to get in a rise out of me. Someone wants to upset me. But I don't have any reaction. Because when I showed that the medallion that my grandmother gave me when I had my appendix rupture, like I even said, if I lose it, so be it. That's just means it's not meant to stay. But I always have access to that because I know it's already done what it's meant to do. I just hold on to it for the memories. And I always have the memories. But I like to look at it every now and then. And I like to think about what it reminds me of. But I don't have to have it to do that. Okay? The stuff that came off my computer, I don't need it. I mean, they keep on giving us more, buy this computer with more and more memories. You can hold on to more and more stuff. Most of the stuff can be thrown away. People just don't want to go through it anymore. So I figured this is the universe's way of saying you don't need that anymore. So I let it go. And that in that lesson, we will be letting go. We will be letting go of so many things that we have erroneously put our faith in. This is a purging. I don't feel that there is much more that can be said. I feel like people who have done the work will be ready. I feel like those who are unaware of the greater message of what's going on will struggle. This is about faith and trust. How strong are you to this end? I see people from varying perspectives who should have no reason to keep moving on, but they keep going nonetheless. They may not know it. They may not know it in their conscious mind, but that is faith. Everyone's so worried about the homeless people, people are advocating for Black lives, but let me tell you, when the struggle is the greatest, these are the people who know how to survive. They keep fighting no matter what, no matter how misguided it might be, because they know intuitively that there is something out there for them. They just got to hold on a little longer. And I meant no matter how misguided the fight, like it seems like everything is so hopeless, but they keep fighting. No matter what, they keep surviving because they know if they just hold on a little bit longer, there is something for them. Okay? That's the truth. That's the truth. That is blind faith. The meek shall inherit the earth. If you are connected with the divine, live from a place of love and light, live in the flow of energy, then you are ahead of the game. But we are all at varying levels of transcendence. How the divine manifests through us, how the divine inspires us is unique. The divine speaks to all of us. Are you listening? I can look back at my life and see it on my best days and worst days. I can generalize that information and apply it to what I see going on in this world. This transition isn't about saintly behavior. This transition is about intention. To do the intentions you set forth in your life come from goodness, kindness, honesty, integrity, love and light, the greater good. We are not meant to be perfect. We will have bad days, but we are expected to put the greater good before the individual and live from unity. This is at its most basic level, the divergence taking place during tribulation and transcendence. So at its most basic level, this divergence is taking place as a part of tribulation and transcendence. Okay, this divergence of the light and the dark, the intention of for the greater good, supporting the greater good, or the intention of separation, this divergence is at the most basic level tribulation leading to transcendence. Okay, I can and so I can meet you on your terms. I can meet you on your terms. I can become the darkness, but that is not my homeostatic state. That is not who I am. That part of me does not define me or us. My homeostatic state is unconditional love. So many of us have been put into a hypervigilant state because of the darkness on this world. What we have seen and experienced has taught us to keep our guard up and remain safe. But this world is changing, and the need for this type of hypervigilance is fading. We have been asked to slowly release the paradigms, beliefs, experiences, and allow in the unconditional love of the divine and trust in that source energy. This is a lesson. Like the lesson on darkness brings about more darkness, light brings about more light. So I had a experience a long time ago when I first moved to Seattle, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I had no air and I couldn't breathe. And so as I woke up, I started to get air again and breathe, and I could feel the force on my neck. I could feel the force of being like choked out, and so I was really pissed, and I was angry that my angels and guides let this negativity in, and I was pissed that the negativity was trying to attack me, and I was like very aggressive, like in my conscious mind I was like battling it out, and I went back to sleep, and I woke back up shortly after. Again, no air. I had no air and I couldn't breathe, and I was very upset again, and I went through that I think 3 times before I realized that it was a lesson. So it was a lesson, and what I did was ended up wrapping that negative energy up in love and light and removing it from my space. And I asked the divine, I said, please help this negative energy or whatever return back to that source energy, return to that homeostatic state of love and light. And every time I try to do that and I wrap it in love and light energy, it just would like fight it. It would be so pissed. It would be so angry. And so I would say, well, since it's resisting this love, I'm going to remove it from my space. So I'd ask the source energy to remove it from my space and remind it of its true divine origins and help it move back to center. Okay, so that was a lesson. I kept on going through that experience of being choked out and getting angry and realizing that every time I got angry, I empowered that darkness. I kept empowering that darkness. It took me 3 times to say, to learn, I'm empowering the darkness. How do I not do that? And so that was my lesson, is like, don't do that anymore. You wrap it in love and light energy, you support it, and you send it on its way and let the source energy deal with it. But darkness brings darkness. Love brings love. Promote love, project love, and create more love. Do not project darkness, because when you do that, you project more darkness. Okay, that's the lesson. Okay, that was the lesson. And so if this is going back to the beginning, as I had that vision with the running behind the raptor and that urgency, and so all the shifting energy. There's a lot of shifting energy. The Alpha Dragos came. They came in and battled it out with the Alpha Dragos of separation. The Alpha Dragos living from balance and love and light came to remove those Alpha Drago living from separation that are here on this planet. And so there was a engagement aggression that transpired in that event. And so as I'm this week today, as I saw that raptor and I'm chasing that raptor, or I'm behind that raptor following it somewhere, I feel that same urgency. And what the as soon as I had that vision, I had the knowing came in, or the reminder, fighting, defending from the heart. And so that was also the lesson for the special forces guys. Like, they have this really intense ability to, they're very focused. They really are very good people, even though they've had very dark experiences. I believe that truly in my heart, and I feel it. And so the lesson now is, how do we engage in these battles that are ensuing to free Mother Earth, to truly free humanity, and remove these negative energies from the planet. Okay? And so that was, we are expected, so spiritual warriors, those of us who are very affluent at working with energy and the consciousness, we are here to defend those who can't or won't defend themselves. And so when I say, clearly there are some people who can't defend themselves for various reasons, but the people who won't defend themselves, so I was noting men who won't hit women, but women who hit men, right? So a woman attacking a man who won't hit her back. Children who won't defend themselves against abusive parents or caregivers. Even though they can fight back, they don't, right? So there is some energy, some force of goodness, some force for the greater good, who has to come in and defend those who can't or won't defend themselves, right? And so the lesson comes now in driving from the heart. And I'll go back to what I said. I can meet you on your terms. I can become an aggressive person. I can become incredibly defensive. I can, and I have lived at a hypervigilant state of defensiveness for many years. Fear, driven by fear. Okay? But now it's not, that's not empowering. That's disempowering. Empowerment comes from driving from the heart. Empowerment comes from knowing that what this source energy is asking from you, and then moving from that place from your heart. And that's what that vision was telling me, that we're having to drive from the heart, because we may be asked to do things that are difficult and challenging, but it is necessary in order to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Okay, we are being asked to step forward and step up and step into roles as spiritual warriors. Okay, and like I said, if there's any request for us from the divine to be aggressive in any way, we must connect to the divine and make sure that is what's being requested of us, because that is how we are protected karmically from any type of aggression. But this negative polarity, this energy living from separation, will provoke and will try to move you at a center to be violent. Darkness begets darkness, okay? But love brings love. And if you fight from love to defend the things that must be defended, that you are being asked to defend, then you promote love through your actions, not darkness. And so being able to discern that within yourself before engaging in anything is very important. Okay, it's extremely important. And this is actually even another test for transcendence. Okay, this is a test for us who are driving forward. I've had many tests over my lifetime in the last 6 years since I've since that massive spiritual awakening happened. But I know what that means for me now. I know what those tests mean for me. I know what's being asked of me. So I just work through it. I connect to the divine and I work through it. And that's what's being asked of everybody. All of us. But I don't know what that means for you individually. You need to connect through your heart to the higher self and connect to the divine and determine your path and purpose so that you can make decisions that are best for you during transcendence and tribulation. And through that, if you're making your decisions based on what's best for you through connections with the divine, through the higher self, then you know that those actions are for the greater good. But you have to connect through the heart, through the higher self, to the divine, and receive those messages that way to be assured that your actions are meant to transpire the way that you think that they are. Okay? You can't allow any manipulation. You have to have a clear connection. That comes from clearing, centering, and balancing your energy, and making sure you maintain protective fields around your energy and keeping your thoughts positive. Okay? So I'm going to clear my energy one more time. Okay, that's it. Thank you.